Funeral music.
So I'm thrilled that you all have taken the time out of your day today to join us. This is really a significant day for us here at Cal State Northridge. Our first showcase by our first Course Redesign Institute. I think many of you know that the provost and I have wanted to do a Course Redesign Institute for a while. The provost wouldn't be here if he wasn't speaking over at UCLA today. So you have me as the as just setting the stage here for a moment, but it really is to just say that this really is an exciting time. We hope to move forward with future ones. I hope as you see the showcase here today that you will join me in realizing that this was beneficial, not just to these fine folks sitting down here at the front, but to the institution as a whole. It's been an interesting year or so, more than that, probably in planning, and has not just been Information Technology or the Faculty Technology Center. It has been an enormous collaboration with academic affairs, multitude of groups in academic affairs, so let me try and list them, and forgive me and you'll help me if I forget one or more, but certainly the library, faculty development, Universal Design Center, academic assessment, Zen College with their distance learning expertise, so a whole collaboration that has come together both in the developing and planning of the Course Redesign Institute and then actually serving up the faculty content. So that's my little part here. Let me pass it over to Dion Zell, who I hope most of you, if not all, know as our Senior Director for Academic Technology, and we will move right along.
Great. Thank you, Hillary. So the professor may have to stand behind a podium and man the PowerPoint, but I will try not to do that too much. So again, welcome everybody. It's absolutely amazing to have you here. Let me jump right in to where our story begins. Many people think that you can just take a face-to-face course and throw it online. You heard that before, maybe? Well, guess what? You can, right? An online or a hybrid course, we're talking about both of those today, require a lot more planning and a lot more management. They're just, bottom line, is a lot harder to run than a face-to-face course. So in 2011, we adopted a set of quality principles called COLT, which stands for Quality in Online Learning and Teaching. This was like a recipe, like a backbone that we could use to design top-quality hybrid and online courses. So this was actually developed by the Chancellor's Office by a guy named Brett Christie, who some of you may have heard when he was here speaking on campus last semester. But if you didn't, we're going to quickly go over the 7 principles. So here they are. That's what we're going to do today. That's not them. This is the 7 principles. So these are things like, number 1, introduce your course, provide a roadmap, and give students a comprehensive overview so they know what's coming and they can get excited about it. Number 2, make sure that you evaluate student learning outcomes through SLOs. I'm sure you all know what those are. Number 3, find and use great resources, which of course has never been funner with the internet. I mean, like, the sky's the limit. Number 4, make sure your students feel engaged and they can interact so that there's a sense of community online. Number 5, pick the right technology that matches the pedagogy. Yes, we love technology, but we don't want it to drive the pedagogy. They have to work in concert with each other and support each other. Number 6, make sure students know where to go for help, right? So if they get stuck, they don't feel lost and lonely. They can go find help somewhere. And number 7, make sure that the course is universally accessible through universal design principles. So those are our ingredients for a top quality course. In fact, several of our faculty have served as pioneers. I don't know if they're here today, but they participated in a CSU-wide competition designed to recognize the top hybrid and online courses that was called the COLT competition. We'd like to acknowledge them if they're here, so I'm just going to read out their names. If you are here, just stand up for applause, and we'll give you a certificate later. But real quickly, they're Ashley Schuyler. Nope, she's too busy with the new Cal State Online. Talian Sarkanian, are you here? Yay! And Perry Clem. No, actually, she could not make it. Ellis Goddard, are you here? There's Ellis. And Debbie Chowdhury, are you here? All right, well, 2 out of 5, that's fine. I'm sure they're off designing their courses for the the fall. All right, so thank you, Colt winners. Now it's time to turn to the stars of our show. You guys, standing up here. 14 faculty members who have gone through a lot to be here today, and I mean a lot. They were chosen from over 30 participants, or excuse me, 30 applicants, because of two things mainly: the caliber of their proposal and the number of students that they reach. Okay, so they have a broad impact. In June, they spent 2 intense weeks in Redesign boot camp. And I mean it was boot camp. Working shoulder to shoulder, as you saw in the photos, applying the Colt principles, and learning everything from making DIY videos with their iPhones to designing metrics to measure student learning outcomes. So it ran the gamut of those principles. Boot camp ended on June 15th, but they've been working ever since, online, on their own, right up to the last minute. Yesterday morning, we had a full-fledged dress rehearsal. They look a little exhausted. So for them, their next steps are to finish up their courses and then unveil them over the next year. So what we're going to see today, over the next hour, are highlights of their redesigned courses. And these will be clustered into topics that will loosely map onto the Colt principles. So 6 groups, they're going to present in groups, but they're going to come up one by one. Lee's going to introduce them. And I need to acknowledge Lee Wang, who is sitting up here to my left. She's one of our instructional designers who served both as mastermind and ringleader. And she may look delicate and petite, but she's got a backbone of steel, and boy, she Right. And of course, we had amazing support from the rest of our FTC staff. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Lee, who's going to walk us through the presentation.
Thank you so much. With only 4 hours sleep, I'm so excited to be here, even though I'm physically a bit kind of weak. Standing on the shoulders of the giants, we have adapted the Colt rubric to a local version of the CSUM rubric. And then, we have a group, and then we were working together with a group. And so this is the group that we worked together so closely during the 10-day summer institute. So when we talk about, face-to-face converted the face-to-face to online, a hybrid, and people start asking, where do I start, and how online learning and teaching differs from face-to-face, and how hybrid differs from face-to-face. So we start, our discussion and the learning process around the rubric. So the first thing we start, how do you welcome your students in the online environment? So today we're going to have this outline and talking about course before and after, courses that welcome students, and the backwards assessment as those, and you can read those. So I'm going to turn over to the first group, which is Kim and Suzanne talking about courses before and after, and please applaud for
I'm Kim Kerner. I'm in the Department of Anthropology, and I joined the Institute because I had already decided after my first semester here at CSUN and teaching this undergrad GE course in the fall of last year that I wanted to redesign it. The course is really wonderful in a lot of ways. It serves about 120 to 140 students a semester. It's an introduction to the anthropology of magic, witchcraft, and religion, and it's really popular, it's fun. However, what I was getting from students is that they really wanted more interaction in the classroom, which we didn't have time for. We don't have a suitable textbook for the course. It just doesn't exist. So they had a really challenging reader for the freshmen and sophomores I have. They were really struggling with the readings. And because of these student skill levels being really varied, I constantly had like about a third of the class happy, a third of the class frantic, and a third of the class really bored, waiting for the third that were frantic to catch up. So my decision early on was that I wanted to flip the classroom. I basically wanted to have them have the lectures at home because the lectures were the content, were essentially the textbook that formed the content for their exams. So that way they could review at their own pace, and then we could have reading groups in class and interactive activities and meet those student needs. So then the Institute came along, and I was like, perfect. I already want to do this. Now I get help to do it and a timeline that will push me along in doing it. and I'm set to roll this out in spring of 2013. So it's still a work in progress to get all those materials online, but the structure is there. So I changed the weekly structure where we practice first and we have theory afterwards. So they read before class, they come into class, and we do interactive activities and reading discussion to get them engaged and excited about the topic, and then they go home and they watch the lectures and take the online quizzes. My course website before I learned was boring and not very clear. So I did use Moodle, but it was, as somebody else had put it, like a file cabinet, which is a great way of putting it. It was just like, here, go here, read that, here's your assignment. Now I have clear headings, I have much more content, it's more engaging, I put in a welcome introduction and so on, video. So there's just a lot more there for them, and it's much better laid out. I've added a lot of student resources for success, particularly I'm working on a short series of skill videos, things like how do you critically read, how do you study for a short answer exam. This is the at-a-glance calendar I designed, so on one page, front and back, they can have the entire course. I also changed the course materials, so I saved students $70 starting this fall in my face-to-face class by switching to an e-reader that our wonderful librarian, Dr. Mary Woodley, helped me find. And the video lectures will become 15-minute segment videos so that they can go through a little bit at a time if they need to. They won't have, if they have dropped connections, it won't be a big deal, that sort of thing. I also reassessed assessment. The Institute was really great at helping teach me how to tear my classes apart and ask myself, what do I really want students to get out of this class, and how do I measure that clearly? So before, I had these assessment tools, but they kind of were mushed together. Now I've broken them out so that exams clearly have online quizzes and in-class short answer exams that are really short, about a half hour, 3 times in the semester. And this tests content knowledge. One tests weekly progress, the other tests making the relationships between large pieces of content. Then the assignments are designed to test process knowledge, and again, broken out into progress, where they have weekly activities, and then they have a cumulative project at the end, where they have to put all those skills together. So finally, the projected outcomes that I expect to see in spring 2013 when I roll this out is that it will foster independent skill building, allowing them to work at their own pace at home. It uses the student diversity in my classroom as a resource, so by having more interaction, we get to use this great tool that we have at CSUN, which is their own diversity, for them to teach each other. They'll build social and communicative skills, since that's the emphasis in the classroom now. We have that time in the classroom to do that. And it has these practical things of making their scheduling easier and the course cheaper. So I'm excited about it.
Okay, that's me. I'm Suzanne Shelb, also in the anthropology department. And in the Institute, I redesigned the course, The Anthropology of Gender 308, which is a large lecture class between 120 and 140 people. It's a GE course also, and I turned it into a hybrid course, so it's online once a week and in the classroom once a week. So I'll tell you about just a few things that I changed about the course. There are many things, but I'll only share a few of them. One of the things that's important to me as a teacher of anthropology is getting students to practice teamwork, working together, building rapport and trust, and expressing themselves and so forth. So face-to-face interaction is very important, and in a class with 120 students, there are few opportunities to do that. And so I really was approaching that before in a haphazard manner, doing a lot of think, pair, share whenever it seemed convenient, or asking them to share some free writing or something like that here and there. But now thinking about the course where one day is reserved for online and then the other day is explicitly for face-to-face interaction, I've designed a number of activities that really enhance that opportunity to practice those skills, so it's a very targeted approach at this point. A second issue that's very important to me is practicing critical thinking. This is true in all of my classes. And I would say before in this course I took a top-down approach, which is just to say, here's a reading, let me lecture about it, answer these questions. If you've answered them right, you have thought about this critically. So I think that now I have a much more student-centered approach. Students are able to write online, and they do a lot of writing about their responses to the class, to the issues, to concepts. And I have a number of activities where they have to go back to their Moodle thread and analyze the structure of arguments, analyze particular use of words, and so forth. So there's a lot more that online provides a documentation of how people are thinking, and this is an opportunity for students to go back and reflect on what they know and how they've come to know it. A second aspect that's changed in the class are the nature of activities. And the way I've designed the activities. And before, I would say I used some technology. I used Moodle groups, PowerPoint, lots of YouTube videos. For example, we analyzed music videos in the class, and some interactive activities. But now I have a broader range of activities, or rather broader range of technology that I'm using. This is an example of Soft Chalk, and there are a number of opportunities in Soft Chalk to design activities where students can check their reading comprehension or link back to a discussion group on Moodle, et cetera, et cetera. So there's more technology and more opportunities for interaction in the class. Assessment is something that's changed in the class. I think before I focused on doing assessment around milestone activities, exams, papers, and I would check in and say, oh, they did well, or not doing well. But I think with this online approach, I have more opportunities for ongoing assessment to ask them using, for example, the questionnaire option in Moodle, or using something like SurveyMonkey and attaching it to some of the activities they're doing. I am able to collect a lot more information on assessment and respond to it as I go along. And then two final points is accessibility is something that, I've always known that making a course accessible is very important, but I really didn't realize how little I understood or appreciated that. And I used to have a lot of deaf students in my courses, and then I realized an interpreter told me that actually it was very hard for the deaf students to take my class because it would be difficult for them to look at the PowerPoints and look at the interpreter and go back and forth, and they couldn't actually appreciate the audio and the visual, effect that I was trying to create by doing different things in the class. So now I think with online, there's a lot more written material, but I've also learned different ways to do captioning and to increase the accessibility. I still have more work to do in this area, but I'm working towards it. And then finally, I'd like to say that a major change or major outcome of this experience is my identity as a teacher. I think previously I really thought of myself as very dependent on the tech support, always in a tizzy if something doesn't work. I don't know how to figure it out, and I need to lean on someone to figure it out. And as a result of being in the institute, I definitely feel much more resourceful. I don't know everything, but I know if I take the time to figure it out and spend some time that I can answer many more questions that I had. So fewer tizzies.
Well, thank you so much, and I think that's very. Now we get kind of like a long shot or medium shot of what does an online or hybrid course look like, and now we're getting really kind of closer up about exactly the components of the online course, online hybrid course. What does it look like? So next, we're going to talk about the day 1 and day 2. We talk about block 0 or week 0, which is the preparation week and module or unit, you call it, to prepare students for the future weeks or modules. And we believe it's very important because you really establish, you are setting up a stage for students, and you are making connections with them, and have students make connections with whatever you put out there. So let's welcome next group, which is going to talk about a course that welcomes students. And we have Ellen, and we have Lucy and Cecile, and we have Jana. So let's go to Ellen first. There we are. Yeah.
So I'm Ellen Schneiderman from the College of Education, and one of the things that always kept me back from teaching online was the notion of community, of having the students feel like they knew each other, that they were part of a group. I always felt great about getting students into groups at the beginning and feeling some kind of personal connection. So one of the things that was really important to me in beginning to move a course online was to think about strategies for being able to handle that challenge. So the course that I worked on was the introductory course in special education. It was a redesigned course already, and so it was a good time to also try to make an online option for students with this particular class. So this is the first thing that the students see when they enter the course online. And I'm a big one for graphic organizers and a conceptual schema, so I wanted to put a schemata right up front of this is basically the class in a nutshell, what it is that the class is going to include. And because in the College of Education we have a large number of deaf and hard of hearing students, I have a welcome message, both which is of myself speaking, and that's captioned, and also of myself signing the welcome message for the student. So we'll see if this works. Oh, this. Okay. So there's no sound, but I'm talking, and it's captioned. They don't have to lip read. There actually is audio in that part. And then the same message is here with myself signing the message. So I was very concerned to make sure that there was a positive tone.
And social emotional development.
Oh, okay, now the sound is right. So it's actually, now they're off from one another, but they are the same message being conveyed in both ways for the students.
And thinking about some of the barriers.
All right. And so then the Block 0 has very clear, this is just a screenshot from Moodle, so this is what the students will actually see in Moodle. Right at the beginning, underneath the introduction, is this very clear statement of how the class works, and right up front that they have to stay in a timely place. I tried to use different colors to bold important points, and all of these important points are repeated in different places throughout this introductory block. The next block, right up, what are the course requirements? So in addition to the words written there, you see there's a little icon of a picture of the textbook, a picture of the lecture PowerPoints, a picture used for the textbook. And so those pictures also come up in the weekly sessions where the students are cued in to the fact that they have requirements in each of these areas. So this is laid out using, spacing and icons and color and all of these fun things that we play over time. Continuing with the course requirements, you can see the icons that continue to illustrate for the students. After it's laid out in that linear kind of a format, there's a link right at the bottom of it, so the students can have it in a chart format that they can also print out, which looks like this. So it shows the same thing of each week. When I say the week ends, so when reflections and comments are due are listed right there. Additionally, the what is to be read at that time and what it is that's to be graded from each component of it. So they have it in Moodle. They also have it in a form that they can print out. What do I do if I need help? First off, there's the Moodle help, and there's a link right there where the students can go to get help that's offered by the university for students. Second, there's a place for question and answers where they can get help from each other within the class. And then also a note that if they want to use my direct email, what they should put in the subject line so that I know that this is something that I need to get back to right away with the students in the class. Then the very first week, the students are asked to introduce themselves online. They're asked to put up a current photo of themselves, like chest up, not these big ones that are away on a fishing trip, and then to introduce themselves. So when they're put in groups online, they also have a visual. And then very important to me is this final thing, so that I have a visual of them. So when I'm walking around campus and I see a student and they say, oh, I really liked the thing we did in class this week. I have some visual recognition that, yeah, oh, you are a student in my class. This isn't, I mean, I was really worried that I would just pass by these people who I communicate with every week and have no idea who they are. So part of the idea was to create that visual connection, that personal connection with the students for this. So I'm hoping that will work. Thank you very much.
Just before we start, I want to tell everybody if we look buffed and beautiful, it's because we've been to the Summer Institute boot camp. Maybe you want to try it next time. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lucy Parkers. My colleague, Cecile Ben David. We are just two of the instructors at Computer Science Department here at CSUN, teaching this wonderful course called Comp 100. Very in-demand, highly popular course. It's an introductory course to computer concepts and with a focus to Microsoft Office, meaning Word, Excel, Access, PowerPoint. We teach them all the tips and tricks to becoming internet savvy and computer concepts and the whole vast array of computer resources that we have here at CSUN. If you look at the chart here, I try to just tell you that a big bunch of our students, when they come in, first of all, they think they're computer literate. They think, we really emphasize a lot on the practical aspect of our course. So unlike some other courses that are more reading, we're all really hands-on, being with them, standing around, teaching them how to do this trainings and exam-based and projects on Microsoft Office. So only about 30% of the course is about reading and lectures. And could you go on, please? Therefore, we average about 1,000 students per semester, so it's a big course. And they're almost always freshmen coming straight from high school. Most of them own personal computers or have access to one, and most of them think or they believe they already know everything. So this is a complete waste of their 3 units and 16 weeks of their lives. So obviously, right off the bat, we give them a pre-semester survey to gauge their computer skills, and you know what? Most of them get 10, 20, 30%. So, and we give them the same survey again at the end of the semester, and they get 70, 80, 90%, and they're very happy. We've developed a fantastic set of SLOs in the last couple of years, thanks to our department that helped me. But really, just to tell you our course goals, we're going for this culture of teamwork, active learning. They're there doing the job and learning with immediate feedback using technology, and we're doing some face-to-face and online interaction. Going on, Cecile?
Okay, so our job was to change the 2 times that we were meeting in class, it's a 3-unit class, to do a hybrid proposal. So we've redesigned the Moodle, so it's done to teach the students online as we normally do. The first thing we had was a welcome video. We can't show it to you right now.
There's a link to a welcome video.
There's a link to a welcome video that's done in extra normal. And what's interesting about this is that the students in my class are going to use extra normal to create that same video to introduce themselves. So we're going to be using the tools that we're using. The students are going to be using those tools to give back to us, to introduce themselves. We've also changed the way the syllabus is laid out, so we're going to show you that in a minute. We have the news forum, we have the question and answers, we have a lot of tools here for the students. So, the first thing we changed, we made a book out of the syllabus. And those of you who use Moodle, I welcome you to try this because it's very, very handy. It creates a table of contents, and you can see on the left it's a little small to see, but each of the topics in the syllabus are laid out. The students just have to click. Now, we also have the visual format in Moodle, so the students can just click here if they want to. All right. We also have links to the book website.
We're very blessed that being in computer science department, we have access to many resources, and our publisher really allows us that. So actually, the book bundle that students buy, it's like 7 books and a whole bunch of other things. They actually have access to this fantastic books website, which within that books website, we have crossword puzzles, all kinds of games, key terms, online study guides. They can read the chapter before coming to the class. They do the online study and just email it to us. So really very comprehensive book website. And also we have, next one please.
We have links from the Moodle page to these pages. So the students are working in both sites.
Yeah. And again, another resource that we have is this software program called My IT Lab. It's an online assessment and training program, which is 24/7. And they love the fact that I work at 1 o'clock in the morning with them at the same time. They just, submit their quizzes, their exams. All the PowerPoint lectures are online, videos, everything's posted on a calendar.
We also wanted to show you our first 2 weeks of the course. We have links to the online lectures. We've broken it down by week so the students know exactly where they are. The quizzes are all online. They're all listed here. And there's a table that tells them exactly what to expect.
And our 5 minutes is over, but I just want to focus on this fantastic slide in here, which is really, we're using all this host of, basically the course is already a hybrid course. It's just not being advertised as a hybrid course. We use a whole host of online tools towards a culture of teamwork, really promoting critical thinking and problem solving. We've been doing that forever, and now we're going to be doing it officially. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Jana Velasquez, and I'm in Chicano Studies. I'm the mean person. I'm the timekeeper. So I'm just keeping time. Public speaking goes hybrid. Public speaking, a course of public speaking shows certain challenges because when you think about public speaking, think about online, those two things don't match. Mostly because you need an audience in order to become and practice being a good speaker. But today I'm going to show you how, through the help of the Institute, I turned my course into a hybrid course. We're going to talk about the before and after of 1, my Moodle page, 2, the syllabus, and 1 of sample assignment. So here's an example of my before and after Moodle page. I came into the Institute thinking this is going to be so easy because I already use Moodle. Well, little did I know it wasn't that easy. I did use Moodle as a filing cabinet, as you mentioned. Students would go there, open documents, and move on. Now, I give an introduction, which is particularly important because it's a public speaking class. I have certainly much more information, activities, reading comprehension, etc. My new Moodle page is divided into models. Each week has assigned readings, complementary readings, online resources, reading comprehension activities that range from crossword puzzles to quizzes to TED Ed videos. And here are 2 weeks of my new class. In terms of the syllabus, I had a very detailed 9-page document with tons of information that I just realized after the universal design people came that it was completely inappropriate. But I've made efforts to make that more appropriate, but as I point out there, it's an attempt to address different learning styles because I just realized how little I know and I'm probably doing things wrong still. So the new syllabus has clear lines. The formatting is a little bit easier to read. It's color-coded, but for those colorblind, it's italicized and bolded. So I'm really making an effort here. Okay. So my class schedule, in blue, it's face-to-face. In red is online. And here, for example, this is a sample activity. I used to spend an entire class period trying to assign speech dates. And it was very complicated because people would go and think, well, do I really want to give a speech on December 7th, maybe December 5th? I really don't know. Right, so we would spend an hour and 15 minutes for them to sign up to what day they really felt that they were going to be prepared to give this presentation. choices on Moodle in which people just go, there's 7 slots. You missed it, normal slides. Okay, so December 4th is your choice. So, my new hybrid online public speaking course, it's face-to-face. We're going to give formal speeches. We're going to have delivery workshops where we talk about posture and voice and projection and being so scared that you can't move. And online, we are doing quizzes, tests, my lectures, which include YouTube, soft chalk, and you're going to see examples of that later. Evaluating famous speeches, drafting self-critiques, reading comprehension, all of that is online. And when we're in person, we're just going to have fun and workshops and speeches, etc. So that's public speaking for you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. I think that sounds very exciting in all your courses, and I'm definitely going to try to sign up for, especially public speaking, which is so important. Obviously, we have learned examples that for block 0, week 0, you don't necessarily upload that mile-long document about your syllabus up there. You can create a lot of activities and provide a lot of resources for students. But before we completely, go online or, design courses for hybrid, what do we think offline? Where do we start with while you are still face-to-face? So next, Dave is going to introduce his process of doing backwards assessment and addressing student SLOs.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. So the course I decided to redesign, my name is Dave Leach, by the way, Department of Political Science. The course I decided to try and redesign is called Political Science 350. It's a writing-intensive GE that introduces students to core concepts in political theory. And the writing intensive was actually very important in the way I rethought the course, including the assessment SLOs. This was brought up by conversations I had with my colleagues where they said, students don't read or write anymore. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, I've had this complaint. But it's not true. In fact, I would say that the number one problem I have in the classroom is getting students to stop writing, to stop getting on the phones, to stop texting one another, to get off of Facebook. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, in fact, this is really a signal that online communication shines when we're asked to deal with writing. Writing is something that's very easy to move over online, or at least has a high level potential. The class had been taught previously in a very standard way that I was taught, and for political theory has been taught since approximately the 1200s. There were weekly summaries of readings that I would stand in my robes. If I could wear that I would stand in my robes, the students would summarize them, I would then assign them papers, and they would write those papers back to me. I decided that the more I thought about it, this was not speaking to the sort of writing that A, the students were comfortable with, and B, the students were going to be asked to do in the future. My strong sense is that very few of them are going to grow up to become political theorists, to my great disappointment. So I wanted to restructure a lot of the writing around blogs. Rather than weekly summaries, I wanted to restructure them as blog entries where they're talking about what they found provocative in the readings, what they found interesting in the readings. What was really important about blogs for me is that they're open. They lead to discussion. They lead to discourse. I think for most professors, this is what we really want in a classroom, but it's very hard. It can be very challenging to induce this because students can be scared. They can be shy. They don't want to say something because they're worried about being wrong. And one of the benefits of being online is, for better and worse, people are much more willing to take a stand online. People are much more willing to put themselves out there online. And so this is one of the major components of the change is that all of their work, all of their papers, all of their blogs are public. They don't hand anything in finally until the very end. I give them private comments back on their stuff, but everything they write, including their early drafts of their paper, are public. One of the things that this has led to, though, is that I didn't have a good system for figuring out how to evaluate their comments. This is not something that we have to do outside of an online situation. So I needed to come up with a way to express the rubrics, a way to capture the SLOs, and communicate them with the students. So I developed 2 rubrics. Actually, I have rubrics for the papers as well, but the rubrics for the papers are fairly straightforward. From my weekly summaries, which I've been assigning for several years now, what I've discovered is that the quality of online summaries for students tends to track very precisely with how many of them that they turn in. And so the rubric for the blogs posts themselves is actually very straightforward. They normally get credit for turning in a sort of fully fleshed out blog post. You might be worried that this would give them an opportunity to slack off. My experience is that CSUN students aren't built that way. They take these very seriously. Now, obviously, I haven't done these blog posts, but with the weekly summaries, which the blog posts look most like, They take them very seriously. They really try, and it really improves classroom discussion. So the rubric for the blog is very straightforward, but I didn't have a rubric set up for the comments. I had to develop one. I decided to use 2 dimensions, clarity and helpfulness. I decided to break them down onto 3 dimensions: good, adequate, and poor. This is my attempt to say what a nicely clear comment is, what an adequately clear comment is, what a poorly clear comment is. Now, all of these, and of course, all of these are available online. If anyone would like to see the course, I'd be more than happy to add you. What I wanted to talk about is less the content of this in particular, because that's not going to be universal, but rather what this did with my SLOs, because the SLOs for the class really weren't that helpful. They weren't that helpful for me, and they weren't that helpful for my students. So on the one hand, identifying pros and cons, analyzing and evaluating alternate points of view, I guess I'm into that. Various leadership styles, sure. What I'm asked to do is develop new SLOs. They're much more specific and much more targeted to the particular assignment. So for example, on their papers, they're asked to identify pros and cons of different approaches. Their blog comments are asked to analyze arguments in the course test and each other's interpreted papers. And finally, their paper comments to one another, they're to evaluate alternative point of views on both seminal theoretical questions and writing strategies. My point here is that in shifting to an online class, it gave me the opportunity to rethink what I was doing with assignments and thereby go back to the SLOs and develop SLOs that are much more useful for both the students and for departmental and college level assessment. I unfortunately have to run. I have a class that met about 45 minutes ago. I hope they're still waiting for me. Contact me since I'm not here, in case you'd like to talk about anything, and thank you, everyone.
So we looked at the SLOs on either day 2 or day 3 and make connections between day 1, when students come into the course and when they exit the course, and make the connections and the observable behavior change, the change of the behavior and how we help them move from point A and point B and design assessment tools and materials and around that. So next, we're going to have the group talking about how you create engaging activities with technology and then starting from content. Again.
I'm Lori Campbell. I'm in the sociology department, and I took the opportunity of course redesign to redesign Sociology 364, which is statistics, everyone's favorite course ever, right? And so, like Kim and like Suzanne and a couple other people, I decided to flip the classroom, which is to make my traditional face-to-face class into a hybrid, where we meet once per week face-to-face, doing interactive problems and applications, and then online at home on their own time, they go through lectures. So that's what I did.
And I'm Judy Devanis. I'm from social work, and I didn't have a class online, so this is a brand new class for me, and it's psychosocial assessment and diagnosis using the DSM. Both Lori and I found that we had some things in common when we were going through this Redesign Institute, and one of the things is our content. We've been asked to talk about content, so we thought we'd kind of show you where we started from. So where I started from was the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and my students often tell me that when they have to read this, it's kind of like good for insomnia, and they glaze over. It also weighs a lot if you want to use it for that purpose. There's a lot of reasons you could use it.
Yes, and my students tell me the nearly 500-page statistics book is hard for them to get through, even though it has tons of graphs and visuals. That they can't understand the math when it's put into sentence form for some reason. So it takes a lot of interactive exercises and applications to drive it home.
So one of the things that we went to is the Made Easy version of the DSM, but if anybody wants to thumb through that later, it kind of has the same results. So both Lori and I realized that one of the things we both came to with content was our PowerPoints. And my PowerPoints were placeholders. Like if I was teaching about mood disorders, there would be like a bunch of people's faces up there with all different kinds of moods. And then I would try to get people engaged in what kind of questions did you ask to get at someone's mood, and what does that mood look like? So how would you read that person's face? Lori's content.
I had used PowerPoint and uploaded all my PowerPoint slides into Moodle for students for years. So they always had the PowerPoint there that they could refer back to. It had examples. But my PowerPoint slides were that. They were static. There's no interaction there unless I'm in front talking about it and breathing life into it, right? Otherwise, it's boring. And so any interaction that happens is me posting a question on it, and then we talk about it in class. So when you transform a class and you make it into a hybrid or into online, you can't just think, I'm just going to upload all my PowerPoint slides and post an exam online and poof, it's done. It doesn't work like that.
The other problem for my class, which is a graduate course, Lori's is undergrad, is that our courses are going to be completely online. So there won't be the possibility of having that session live where you think you're going to fill in all the good stuff that we used to do in front of our PowerPoints. So one of the things we both had the challenge with was really how to set up a Moodle page and then also how to connect some of this content that needed to be conveyed. Both of our courses were content heavy. On my Moodle page, one of the things that was really important in my page was to highlight for students what the subjective experience is for a person with a mental health problem, and also to get them involved in their own reactions to that. And so I chose, after hearing the library person talk about copyright, I chose artwork that was done by persons with mental illness or mental health diagnosis that was published before 1923, which allowed me to have no problems with copyright. It also is providing an opportunity for students to really get a sense of not looking at art just for psychological problems, but for really the artistic talent there. One of the things I did up front, and I think Laura will show her page in a minute, which is similar, we both didn't do this together, but we came up with similar ideas, is that there was a lot of upfront knowledge that students need to have in order to then later in the class apply it again and again. So our week 0 and week 1 has a lot of different sort of a pre-measure, a place to answer your questions, so a lot of things that have already been said. So, and then later, you get into the various disorders. And each of my weeks was designed with a week to-do list. So I tried to make a list every week for what students had to do, what they should read, where what kind of activities they had to do, and also what kind of assignments to hand in.
So my page here, a little bit of redesign, some graphics to make it a little bit less dry. But I try and tell students up front, here are the answers to before you even begin to take the class, here are some basic answers to your questions. How is this hybrid going to work? When do I have to be in class face-to-face? What am I supposed to be doing at home? Why am I taking this course? What books do I need to have? All those kind of things. My course also has a lab component, which is still going to be face-to-face because I couldn't figure out how to prepare 2 different classes and redesign them in one summer. So they still have the lab face-to-face, but I also may redesign that too. Move to the content? Okay. So what students would experience in terms of changes that we've made for content, again, you can't just add a bunch of PowerPoint slides up to Moodle and call that an online class if you want to teach effectively and have effective learning. So we used a program that's called SoftChalk. It has some similar ideas as PowerPoint, but it allows you to be a lot more interactive with students. So, for example, this is how a traditional PowerPoint slide would look like, right? You put up a bunch of information. It might be in different colors or different headings. But if you want to do it in a more interactive format, here you can have roll over little bubbles. I find in my stats class, we'll talk about a term, I'll define it 1 week, 3 weeks later, we'll use the same term again, and they can't remember what it means. And so here, I can allow them to refresh their memory, go back, and cover that term again. Oh yeah, I forgot what a unit of analysis was. You can have these interactive little games, quizzes. This is called tabbed info. So you can scroll across and see different things. You can also ask students questions. So you can build in multiple choice questions, short answer questions, true false questions. And if they get it wrong, they check their answer. And it says, no, sorry, this is the correct answer. You can give them hints so they can go back and try it again. so you don't want them just to read a slide and think they understand everything while they're checking their text messages, checking their email, and surfing the internet. So you need to provide this constant, did you actually learn what you think you learned? And so to test them and force them to kind of really focus. Within this soft talk, again, more interactive possibilities. You can also embed videos, so videos of yourself.
How to tell a story with data.
Videos that you find online.
With the growing amount of data available to us today, data visualization is becoming more and more important.
So there's a lot that's possible here.
So back at some of the same things that Lori talked about, were true for my class. A lot of technical terms that students need to learn. So I'm going to take you into, for example, one of the basic tools they need to learn is how to do the mental status exam. Oops, sorry, that's an assignment. So let me go back. This will show you how much of a growth curve I've had in this class, because I was not a Moodle user. So
I learned Moodle and soft talk.
So, yes, and also had to cheat the copyright laws get around copyright laws. So basically, I wanted my students to have some of the content. I created a little character that I wanted for them for a reminder, because a lot of students diagnose themselves during the class, and then they start diagnosing family and friends. And you can to chill out a little. But also, I wanted them also to, have the instruction in my pages. So they could kind of walk through some of what had been previously on my PowerPoint slides. One of the things is that there's a lot of content. I made a fillable form with some help, which was the mental status, which they use over time, and they continue to fill out every time they watch or do an observation. So this is a way for them to be able to, fill that out and then send it in or check it against others. Now, Lori, I'm
and in the past, she had these as handouts. And so in class, they would go through these, so she's made it into a fillable form so they can learn how to use it at the beginning of the class, and then the rest of the class is applications for different types of disorders.
And then part of what I did is I redesigned my PowerPoint slides. I made them into something that would give students the feel for some of the things that we would walk through in class that had a step-by-step process. So they were able now to do this on their own. They're able to walk through some of the information. And I know that I can put in sound bites as well in this section of soft talk. Okay, well, we're being told this.
So that's what content would look like from the perspective of a student. And this is just one software program. There's a lot of others that are available.
Thank you so much. So as you can see that we talk a lot about students during the Summer Institute. So I believe each of us have two hats, right, during the Summer Institute. One is student hat and one is teacher hat. So we have provided enough of the experience of frustrating you with from the student perspective, so you learn what to avoid when you become an online teacher and a hybrid teacher from the opportunities that we have provided, the experience that we have provided. So the next is going to be Victor, and he's not here. He's out of the country for a conference, and I'm going to show a video of him talking about what his plan is.
Hello. I have learned a variety of skills from the Summer Institute. I will be teaching a lot of 150 students because of the size of the course. I'm limited to, certain skills I can apply to my class. I will focus on one skill I have learned from Summer Institute to teaching that course. That is presentation skills. Presentation is one of the three skills we need to pay.
Oh, nice offer from Dutch.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
so,
really where he's at.
Victor's,
And then we're
Victor's, he introduced that he has about 150 students already, registered for this course.
I can't hear you.
What he's planning to do is that he's going to post and assign groups to chapters. Every group will do a group presentation per chapter, and then the rest of the class who are not doing group presentation for that chapter, they're going to evaluate the video presentations that the groups are going to provide. So he asked, about how am I going to achieve that purpose. For the face-to-face, it's all paper and pencil. Take it online. What are the opportunities there to fulfill this goal? So I said, okay, there are a lot of ways of doing that. So one thing we can try Google Form. So we created that Google Form, and every information that students are putting out there, the voting and other information they put there actually feed into a spreadsheet that you can play with and download. So that's what Victor said, hi. And so let's keep going. So here we have covered a lot of things, but what's the big picture of, engaging activities with technology, but what's the universally designed, course, online course and a hybrid, and we need to think about before we use technology, is that accessible to every student in your course? You have to have that every student in your mind, not just the needs of, that special population out there, but everyone. So Shannon is going to give her presentation.
Hello, everybody. The course that I redesigned is Psychology 301. It's pre-professional psychology. This is a required course for psychology majors. We typically get from between 500 and 1,000 students per semester. It's big. It's also just a little one-unit class. It's short. It's 15 hours instead of 45. So how do you fill those 15 hours in giving the students what it is they need to know? The basic premise behind the class, just to catch you up a little bit, is to get them to graduate really well, as opposed to just graduating. Do they have the skill sets they need? Have they taken the right classes for their career goals? Have they gotten the internships? Have they gotten the lab experiences? All that stuff based on what they want to be when they grow up. And typically we don't get to hear about it as advising faculty until they're seniors. A little late for that. So this course is all about catching them up a little earlier. They're to take it as early as they can. Freshmen can take it. Juniors, transferring juniors are required to take it. So we're hoping to make a dent. But back to universal design. When I was redesigning this course, I've only taught it face-to-face. I have never taught an online course. I have never taken an online course. No clue what to expect. I wouldn't have been able to have done this without the online institutes. I'm very appreciative of their efforts. I had to make a choice immediately. In my home department, psychology, I am a human factors psychologist. I study usability. I teach usability theory. So it comes kind of easy to me. The first decision I had to make was, how am I going to present this stuff? I know what I'm going to present, but how am I going to present it? Now, you have seen beautiful tools. You have seen some amazing whistles and bells. You have. But are those accessible to all students? Or just the ones that can see? Or just the ones that can hear? Or just the ones who have working limbs? What are you doing? So I made the decision to make mine pretty boring, actually, truly. I did not add any whistles or bells that couldn't be overcome. I start with the traditional, who am I? I definitely want them to contact these people, not me. If they need help, I'm not the right person. I'm not the IT tech person at midnight, right? Call them. Here's what the class is. You can easily create a YouTube video. No, I won't do them.
They're on.
They are, but I can't get rid of that.
Just push it again.
Oh, there it goes. And it would have volume, and I don't care about that. But I made sure that every video that I created is accessible visually, as well as auditorily if they need it, if they want it. Okay? You can certainly turn these captions on and off if they're annoying. Although it's kind of neat to be able to mute me in the middle of the night if you just want to read along and not wake up your roommates. So that's very easy to do. It uses very simple technology. Almost every student on this campus knows exactly how to use YouTube. There's nothing special there. I also created some PowerPoints that are available visually as well as auditorially. Very easy. I made sure to save them in PDF form, compatible with any computer. I also created some PDF documents that are sound enhanced as well. But making sure that every bit of your class, everything in your class, is accessible to every student is kind of challenging if you haven't done it before. So what I came away with was the idea that here I am, a technology freak, man. How do I back off and not use technology? Okay. How do you make sure it's accessible? Bottom line is, if it's not actually helping get the point across, don't use fancy technology just because it's pretty. Thank you.
Good point, Shannon. So I think that's one of the major things that we discussed at the institute. Does technology come first, or good teaching and good design come first? So we heavily emphasize on pedagogy and alignment of the courses, and what is the best, and then transfer to online, and how we can enhance the good content with technology in the online environment. So the next group is we have Vicky and Bob. They're here to talk about their Redesign Institute experience.
Hi, everybody. I'm a professor in the Department of Health Sciences, and the purpose for joining this group was to address one of our GE and required courses, Health Science 345, which is issues in public health. That was the primary reason. But the secondary reason was we are seriously thinking about putting our Masters of Public Health program all online. So, I'm going to talk about lessons learned. Is that okay now? Okay, sorry. And some of the reasons I was thinking about is, why am I doing this? Why am I joining? And seriously, this is the wave of the future, and Dion told us that every time she spoke with us. But it is. And our national accrediting body said that the most hits they get are for inquiries about online graduate programs. So there is precedent for that. And as a faculty member, I love learning new things, and most positively, I get to do it with cohorts, so we are all going through that together. As the day came closer to starting, I had more anxiety and concerns as we moved closer. First of all, am I going to know the vocabulary? I know I'd say about half a text speak, but I didn't know if there was anything that talked about the technology vocabulary. Technology also, I learned what I need to, but as I said, I didn't grow up with an iPad, and I still have nightmares about dropping my box of cards as I was walking to the mainframe. or the comma I forgot, and I went into infinite loop. But that's another world. But mostly when I look at the courses I teach, it is extremely important that there's group activity, group work, and group presentations. And I wasn't sure if that would happen or how I could do that online. So as I walked in, and the first thing I saw was a laptop without a mouse. And I don't do laptops well unless I have a mouse, so immediately that was brought to me. And technology is here to stay. I can handle this. And I kept saying, I am in control, not the computer. And I might be dating myself, but I still have visions of Hal in control, for those of you that know Hal. And, but most importantly, I kept saying, the technology is not in control, the SLOs are. And the more I could say that, the better I felt, that it's the content and the SLOs that are guiding, not the fact that we have all this marvelous, wonderful technology. content first, curriculum first. So some of the issues I had and am still working with is the fact that there is so much group work, so much needed to give presentations and discussions. So how am I going to do that? Plagiarism is a constant issue both online and in class, and there are some ways of limiting it, but it's never going to be an issue. And then also students' capabilities. So that was another thing that helped me. It's not so much that I'm not the iPad world, that some people who are still are not as proficient with computers. So that's an issue. Key lessons, know Moodle. You really need to know it. It really helps you, guides you. Illuminate, you can put your lectures synchronous or asynchronous. It's essential. There are ways of creating asynchronous discussions besides having an open forum. And I think I should have put this word at the beginning, but net etiquette. It is crucial, and I don't know how many of you get emails saying, "Hi, Vicki," or "Hi, whatever," instead of "Hello, doctor." But also the text messages, the text speak, etc. There is a lot of etiquette that needs to be explained. So I still have my bright red non-electric typewriter that I don't use because I am using one of the computers. I just want to show you progression.
You know, doesn't that blow your mind, though? I'm telling you. I call them the fabulous 13. I'm the 14. I think they've done a great job. I learned an awful lot. They saved the more mature member of this group of 14 for the end. That's me. And you know what goes along with that? The fact that, as Jerry might know, I don't know a lot about computers. When we first started, I did teach a class with Karina's help and Joy Wells from Distance Learning, because in educational leadership, we have our whole program in distance learning online. Learned about Blackboard, and then I had to learn about Moodle, and we just go on and on and on. And I can tell you that when I got into the distance learning class, they did a lot for me, Blackboard and Moodle. So I had to catch up. And I'm one that doesn't know a lot about computers and technology and this sort of thing. And when I sat there with this class, I was just so impressed with what they were doing and their knowledge. And I'm from the other side, it takes me a little bit longer to understand things. And I was going to show you my course, but I failed. It's not done yet. But I want you to know, Mike, I'm teaching it in Glendale starting on Wednesday the 29th. So I hope, Lee Wang, that we're going to be ready. Where'd she go? To teach that course. But I'm very proud of what I actually did in putting it together. I learned a lot just by watching my colleagues this morning of what I don't know and what I should include in my course. But before we go any further, I don't know if we're going to do it, but I think we need to really thank Lee Wang for putting this whole thing together. The party behind this camera was great, too. He tried to teach me about Moodle during the time. And Hillary, where's Hillary? There's Hillary. We call her Sergeant Hillary. But we've got lots of, please stand up and be on.
Hey, yeah.
Everyone that was helping us out, I'm really appreciative. I want you to know, during the first week that our new president was here, she came to our class. And I hope we impressed her with what we're doing and what the Faculty Tech Center put together for us, because they did a great job. They're working real hard at bringing the older part of our faculty right into Moodle and technology so that we can be up to date with our own students. Let me just tell you a couple of things of what we were looking at. I learned something about podcasts, soft chalk, asynchronous, synchronomous, speed dating, genogram, holistic and analytic rubrics, Lecture Lite and Lecture Pro, and of course, Moodle. All of these things. Aren't you impressed, Jerry? A couple of things that I thought were really highlighted, which I added to my course. By the way, Lee lined up at least 20 faculty members and others that spoke to us during the course, and there were numerous departments that were represented, so it was really great. The resources that we had, and especially the way that we could communicate back to Lee to ask questions, and keep that line open for me, please. Assessing online strategies, challenges, and opportunities, a reading assignment. 11 strategies for managing your online courses, another reading assignment. Online student engagement tools and strategies. And we went on and on and on, going through all kinds of different opportunities to learn about Moodle and learning about putting our course online and teaching in hybrid online fashion. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this, Dion, and I want to continue to learn in the Moodle and hopefully to impress my students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and our team is here to help always. And so that's the story, a very little story from everybody. And shall we give another round of applause?
Well, we're not quite done yet. At this point, we would like to ask our 14 experts, our pioneers, to come up and have a quick Q&A, if any of you would have some questions to ask them, and then we will have a wrap-up and be done around 2:45 for sure. So, can you guys come on up? And who's got some questions?
I know it's a little awkward to wear like a
All right, is anybody up here? Nobody's hiding? No? Okay, go ahead.
I'm very curious about, did it increase the amount of time that you put into your courses?
Together now.
Yes! But how do you see that playing out over the course of the semester? I mean, with the blogs and all the, students having more opportunities to communicate.
Well, I've been working on it ever since we had our 2 weeks, and that was quite a while ago. It does take time, but I think it's going to be well worth it. I learn a lot myself, and I'm impressed with that. So it does take time, and you probably need a summer to work on it. So.
Have you ever taught online?
I have not. I teach screenwriting.
Okay, so let me tell you where you are, where I was a month ago, 2 months ago. I thought, oh, this is going to be so easy because you set it up, and then it's just an easy ride because from there on, every semester you can use it and just copy, bloop, done. Oh, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. It's a ridiculous amount of work to set up everything.
So
and then, and when you think that you're all done, you have to go back and redo it all over again.
Okay.
And then there's such little details about each week, each model that you have to be constantly updating that it's not an easy route. It's not time safe.
Can I add something to that? Because, for example, the DSM is going to change this year. So the DSM 13 is going to, in 2013 it's going to change. That means everything that I did for 2012 is probably going to be outdated. So some things I think you just have to, know are going to be outdated. But I think that it really, for me, it really makes you look at everything that you have in your box. That's part of your, your tools that you use, whether you're online or not. And really gives you a chance to reassess. But I do think it's time. And you have to be careful, I think, too, about how many assignments you set up. Because I know that in the beginning we had like form, this assignment, that, and that's all that you're going to have to interact with every piece of that when students are going through it. So I think, it's like you have to think about what you're trying to accomplish and then what options you have.
I think it's an really important point. I think it's important for us to think smart with it.
initially, when I was looking at changing the class, I started thinking, wow, I'm really requiring a lot more time of these students than I am of the face-to-face students.
Right.
So important to think about, the number of really cool things we throw in there, but is it a course that really requires a similar demand on the students in the online environment and in the face-to-face environment?
I think
Additionally, I think with the discussions and the reflections and all of that, it's a matter of also thinking smart, because if you put the students into groups to do that, they can give feedback to one another. Instead of, at first, everybody was talking, and I felt compelled to make sure that my presence was there all the time, and that is really, really time-consuming. So if you think about smart in advance and try to make sure you create ways where everybody does get feedback, because we all need it, but in ways that it doesn't always have to be you with every student every time, otherwise craziness.
Yeah, at the beginning I think there's this feeling of there's so much that's possible. You can do discussions, you can do online quizzes, you can do online homeworks, you can do videos, and you feel compelled, I think, in a society to do everything, but really less is more. More isn't good. More overwhelms you, it overwhelms students, and so I think of this, for me, the best way to do it was to think of it as a process. I taught the class for several years face-to-face. I knew the content, I knew the assessment, I had all these things down, and then move it to a hybrid, where you teach partly online, partly face-to-face, and you see what works and what doesn't work. And then, if you want to move it fully online. So I think of it as more of a three-pronged process rather than jump from a class you've never taught to teaching it online all at once.
What I like the most about, I like so much of what I heard today, but is that it allows you to use the classroom time to really focus on the students and interact in a way, so you can take the drier stuff, but that's really exciting.
I think what's really important is that we consider what students really appreciate, and they really like interaction. Now, maybe our mode of communication is more online, email, etc., but being able to respond to their questions, respond to if you have them presenting online, to be able to give that feedback, and the size of the class is really critical, because the more people you have, you obviously know it's harder to get that feedback. But we just have to rethink that the computer is a mode of communication. We're still teaching, we're still interacting.
And I'd just like to say something. I know some of our colleagues may not be as technologically involved or advanced as some of the other ones, but think about it of a train leaving the station, and the students are on that train, and we ain't. And the faster we catch up, we're going to be in there. Once we're on the train, then we can do whatever we want. We can sing and dance and do everything else. But it's that catching up, which is a little bit, I feel that you are wary of, but really once you close that gap with a little bit of technology, with a little bit of anticipation of work, once you're there, then, you're the king of the jungle.
And one thing I wanted to say is that it does force you to be organized. You have to plan ahead. You have to know what you're doing this week, next week, and the week after. So you have to plan ahead when you're teaching online. Your turn.
Okay. One of the things that they taught us in the Online Institute this summer was exactly what you're talking about, and that is how to avoid turning your course into a class and a half. For you or your students. So really thinking about those things. How much time do I want to allocate to answering emails? None. You figure that out and how it's working, right? So just because you can give them so many assignments doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and I'll follow up on that because I was getting close to my point. In the past, I've taught classes that weren't technically online hybrid, but came pretty close, that it had a lot of online activities. And when I thought about redoing this class, I realized that for me, at least in this large group context where I have so many students, flipping the classroom works well with the content that I have and saving time over the course of things. But having 120 students blog online and me having to keep track of that is way more time consuming than me showing up with 120, getting them in groups and wandering around and filling out rubrics as I listen to them. That's a time-delimited activity. It could get really out of hand and has for me in the past when I tried to do online activities that way. I think sometimes, too, with flipping the classroom, it kind of depends on the content you have. In a class like Anthropology of Religion, the basic concepts have not changed in many, many years and are not likely to change anytime soon. Ritual was ritual, 100 years ago. It's ritual now. So what I did was I started looking at each one of my modules and breaking apart into chunks what is static. Every semester I've taught this class at other institutions and now. And what is dynamic, what I like to bring in from the latest polls, the latest news, what I like to bring in when I'm listening to NPR in the morning and bring it right into class, and make sure that I'm ripping it apart adequately so that the stuff that goes into these static video lectures are the dry content that's spiced up with, some YouTube videos and some artwork and some photos and things that are the basics. What is ritual, what is myth, the classic, going over some of the classic myths. You can tell the myth of Purusha or the myth of Adam and Eve. It doesn't change. And so I think it depends partly on the content that drives the kind of online structure you can have to limit the time investment each semester that you have to do.
And for us teaching computers, we have new books almost every year. Our theory book changes every year. Microsoft Office, thanks to Microsoft, you all know the story. We have a new Microsoft Office coming out. This year we're teaching 2010, but next year, whatever the number is going to be.
2013.
2013. So we're going to have to redo everything. So we use the skeleton that we have developed here, and then into that skeleton we'll put our new materials.
But in a way, our answers are a bit of a speculation because while this presentation is a culmination of a first part, now it becomes a hard part because now it's the trial, error, and assessment of what we did. So we won't really know until
ask us next year.
Until the spring, until the end of the spring, and then we'll tell you, you know what, this is what it took. At this point, it's just high hopes and dreams.
Have you discussed any way to monitor civil conversations? Because I like online conversations. I have a wiki, and we have no time for discussion in my class, so I have all my discussion online, kind of a hybrid thing.
All together now, starts with an N. Netiquette.
Right.
You put your netiquette up and your expectations.
Right, but sometimes you've got a student who just is edgy and not nice. And so what online, in the classroom when I'm having a classroom discussion, it's easy for me to get right in there right away and say, look, before we go any farther, this is what, But online, how does one, have you talked about how one stops that and gets in there?
Yes. Monitor it just like you would in class, only now you've got a little bit of time lag, right?
Right.
So the first time they do it, you get them personally through email, not for the whole world to see. Say this is inappropriate, just like you would in the real world, only with the time lag. Give them a second chance, and then you can turn them off. Okay? You can block them from going on anymore if they honestly cannot get it. So yeah, there are definite steps, but you would handle it very much like live.
I also find that it's helpful either when you have discussions in class or online that you don't tell the students these are the rules. You talk about what are the things that have really bugged you that people do in discussions. And so you let them tell each other things that they shouldn't be doing. It works much better when it comes from them than when it comes from me. So when they say, people swear and I don't like that, or people point their finger or attack me personally, or all kinds of things, then it just is more effective when they police each other and they know it comes from them.
In one of my introductions, I have students think about their explanatory model for mental health, which is really what messages do they bring about persons with mental illness, and where do they carry that from their own personal experience, from their family experience, or just from what they see in the world. And a lot of times that sensitizes everyone in the room, and you'd be surprised how much, because that comes up a lot where even though we're in the mental health profession, sometimes people will still, when they're writing their comments back and forth to each other, say things that are really discriminatory or derogatory toward a person with mental health problems. So that students will then remember that, because we create sort of a white, I'm going to try to create a white wall in my class where all that information goes. So that's like all of our explanatory models are there, and sort of that's our expectation for how we would talk about some of these topics. But again, I like the idea that they police themselves too.
Yeah, I like that.
Question in the back?
Technology as a way of breaking down. And in all fairness, things can go wrong in a traditional lecture as well. So that's not the context for this. But when technology does break down, we need to develop better strategies for dealing with often these new technologies. So I guess my very open question is, what do you do when some of these things break down? There's so many different ways that this can happen. The server might be down, or the student comes to me and says, I can't get this thing to play on my computer.
Great, that's what these guys are for.
They built an emergency help button for us on our website when we were learning. So there's this help button that was like, the button you push when you're in panic. So,
One thing that I do with my quizzes.
But it's limited. You don't have access to it. It's only for us.
With the online quizzes, I'll give a 4-day window for that. So they have 4 days to do this quiz. And I caution them, the library might close before you finish that quiz. So plan ahead. In other words, I do give them that window in case their computer breaks, so that they have another day to get that done.
And the moral of the story is never put your final on somebody else's server, because you can never blame them. At least you can put it on CSUN server. We actually had that one time, and it wasn't a very good picture.
We had to print our finals. It was horrible.
I'm a big fan of the time window. Students will have the entire week after we've met to view the lectures and then take the quizzes, and then they have a retake option on the quiz. And what I tell students, and I'm really mean, so we've already established this at one point when we talked about late policies, I have an absolutely no late policy in my face-to-face classes too. And I tell students that on the first day, and I say it in a really mean way, and I tell them ever. Now what that really means behind closed doors is that of course I occasionally have students who have serious emergencies and we have a workaround. But what it means is that it really gets rid of all the students who don't really have a serious problem going on. And I tell them that means I expect your technology to work when you schedule your assignment. You have a week to complete this. If you wait till the last minute and your system's down, or my system's down, or a system is down, sorry, you've waited to the last minute. This is the way the world works. If I'm trying to upload a grant online, most of the time they don't really care if my system's down if I'm waiting till the last minute. That's my problem. So I just tell them this up front, and I tell them this is good work habits now and when you go off into the workforce. They get used to it. I don't know, they get scared and then they do it on time.
Yeah, we're all scared of her too.
We're afraid.
We won't take her.
I'm really nice in other ways. I have Kleenex in my office.
My early attempts I would always tell the students that I'm learning Moodle, and they are too. The course that I'm redesigning is the first course in our administrative leadership program. So in the fall, I'll be teaching that at a cohort at Glendale, the Unified School District. And I will share with them, I imagine they know a lot about Moodle, but I will share with them that I'll be learning along with them in how to understand Moodle in my class. And I've always felt on the timeline to be flexible. In the course that I'm teaching right now through distance learning, I have a young lady who was taking her daughter through China. The daughter was dancing in a troupe that was there presenting a program. And there's a real lag in China and back here in the States. So she missed the mid-semester. It's only 6 weeks now in this third session. I did allow her. I think that we need to be flexible, and this is coming from a school administrator and superintendent, but I've always felt that you need to be flexible, especially here in higher education. That's what I've tried.
I've messed up. I've messed up where I put assignments and I put an exam, and when I'm entering the date, I enter the wrong number or the wrong year. So I put December 5th of 2011, and I mean, it's a colossal. So I understand that, you know, there's some trial and error, and you have to figure it out, and I have to be aware, and
Yeah, what happens is that in each of my classes, I have a student, you know, that A student who always gets things done right. That student emails me and says, you know, you got the date wrong. and that student always does the work fast. So I get an email right away, and I can even change Moodle on my cell phone. So I can make those date changes or things, because sometimes I miss the time. I might have the AM or the PM mixed up or whatever it is. So if you have a monitor or a student in class and say, could you email me if something doesn't work right, or if I didn't post something when I said I was going to, and then you can be on top of it that way.
When they're terrified of turning it in late, you get notices early. That's
Yeah.
the nice part.
Right.
They'll tell you, they'll call you on it, they're like, hey, like, you screwed up. And I'm like, oh, I did, thank you. And they feel like real proud of themselves. We caught you, you know. I will say that something I do build in, because I have that no late policy, is that lowest scores are dropped, especially in my intro-level classes, but even my upper division and graduate classes has one freebie where their low scores drop. That can either be because they messed up and didn't turn it in, or they just got a low score or whatever. So the amount of the low scores that are dropped decreases as they increase in their ranking. But I am nice in that I build in a cushion there. I'm not entirely horrible. I'm trying to build good habits here.
And it's funny when a student asks you, when is the deadline, when you repeatedly said it's 11:59 p.m., and they say, is it midnight? You say, no, it's 11:59 p.m. and, you know, it just comes in at that point at midnight. So one of our experiences is that that's usually when I set my deadlines, and I'm a late night person, and I think one of my worries is, as you can see, I have a very colorful character, and I really want to inject that into my class, and one of my worries is, with a hybrid or online, what happens to me and my character? How do they feel me? And I think if we really can inject that into your online course by somehow this ghost-like figure that is always in the background, and you're just injecting yourself in various ways. And so don't worry about losing your, you know, this, because you are there, although you're not really there. And like I'm saying, when I'm online at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they're just writing to me, wow, you're still up? And I say, yeah, let's see who's going to stay up longer, me or you. You know, sometimes we do that until 2 or 3 in the morning, and they love it. So if you are, you know, hyper and active, they feel it, and they come along with you. If you are, I'm sorry to say, boring and, you know, blah, then they get that too. And you know, you can really monitor your course that way.
Jerry has a question.
Jerry, there's a question back here.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a slightly different question, and I want to pose it by making a comment first. In producing and consuming this literature for the past 15 years, one of the things that comes out of it is that there's no significant difference between online and in-class learning. I think that's largely an artifact of the lack of sophistication of people who do the analysis. What I've found in the last 15 years is there's a huge interaction effect. People who I will, for want of a better term, call proactive students tend to do much better in online courses, and people who are reactive students tend to do much worse in online courses. So it's an interaction effect. When you average it out, there's no difference, right? So what I'd like to ask you is, has the Institute or any of you given any thought to how you would deal with that distribution of early adopters to laggards, proactive to reactive students, such that when they attempt this material, the people who are very proactive do what they do best, but the people that are very reactive are helped. Have any of you given any thought to that?
In the discussion sections where I have students working with each other, students are given weeks that they have to lead the discussion, and so it can't be the same people every week who pose the questions for students to respond to. So that's an attempt to try to say everybody has something to contribute and are called upon to do that. So in one way, it's a way of trying to level the playing field, because I totally agree that the same people are always the ones who put out the first comment, and everyone else is left responding to them. So so that's one of the things I'm going to be watching, is trying to, the strategy that I intend to try, I'll see how it works, is rotate who's responsible for leading the discussions on a weekly basis. So we'll see if that helps.
And I thought about also dividing my groups up so that for certain days of the week, certain groups are going to put their responses out to, say, a video that they watch that, you know, they have to find something in. And then later in the week, other people get to comment. Because I do think that after even one class, you kind of know who those early responders are going to be. And I don't want, like, I used to put the questions together, like, okay, what is your, you know, what do you observe in this video, and then what do you make of it? Now I've divided that out. So it's like, what did you observe? That'll be divided up, and then later in the week I'll have people comment on what they need of their observations. Because I think otherwise you get the whole answer there, and then people just don't have it, feel they don't have anything to say.
I tend to think, too, that the students who are maybe reactive are students who are generally disengaged, and they're disengaged face-to-face. Where they might come to class, they might not come to class. They sit there, they don't interact with you at all, they don't seem to be paying attention, and so they're just as disengaged online as they would be face-to-face. So for me, what's important is to make sure that every week students know what's going on, that there's something due, that there is a deadline. You know, if you're going to walk through my soft chalk lecture, that's a requirement. And after that, there is a learning check that's worth points. And you can't understand and complete the learning check and get full points unless you've actually looked at the lecture. Because I don't want you to come to my face-to-face class and not have done anything. So I don't want this to be the easiest way out of, you know, learning. So you have to make it worth something in order for students to put forth the effort. And I think that's true face-to-face and it's true online. So you have to have requirements, due dates, points, deadlines for things. You can't take an online class and think that you're going to complete all the assignments in the last 2 weeks of class, right? Because it's all online. No.
For public speaking, I give bonus points for perfect attendance because you cannot give speeches if there's not an audience, and people tend to give classes they don't have to speak. So I give them a 1% bonus point if they have a perfect attendance. If they have regular attendance, I leave them, but there's an incentive. So my students never miss a class, never. They're like always there and always on time. When I translated that to an online class, I turned like the reading comprehension activities into their attendance. So if they have a perfect attendance, then they get the percentage bonus point. And when they hear bonus, even though it's minuscule, they are very happy to do it. As opposed to you get 100% if you get extra, then that seems to be, they just don't really know math.
On that note, how about one more round of applause for our leaders? All right, I don't know about you guys, but I feel so proud right now. But, so this was fabulous. Thank you. You guys can obviously, we have certificates for you, so don't leave before getting your certificate and a group photo, okay? So, quick wrap up here. What's next? What's coming down the pike? Well, you may think we're done with you. We began. Okay? We have ways to entice you to stay with us. So, for example, we will be launching an evidence-based analysis initiative and a continuous improvement initiative because your courses are going to be unveiled. We want to stay with you and see what they look like as they unfold and watch you tweak them and just be an open channel for you to come back to us. So we're there for you. That's our faculty follow-up. We and again, our entire team has put together an amazing amount of material online, which we will make available. So kind of open up the course so anyone can go in at their own pace and learn about everything we've done and access all the tools that we put together. We will be having one, if not two, additional summer institutes next summer. So those of you out there who are interested, start thinking about whether you'd like to join up, or if you know people who would be interested, please feel free to point them in our direction. You'll see the call coming out sometime in the fall for that. And then finally, we are going to continue the partnerships full force. So we know we cannot do it alone. We can't get into this world of online and hybrid and advance the mission of the university ourselves. So for faculty development out there, I see Daisy in the back, raise your hand. There's the library, assessment, Bonnie, you were here, and the Universal Design Center, and if I've forgotten anyone, let me know. Senn College, we're all in this together as a team. help bring university into the future. So
Excellent.
I find that very
Great job.
So, I think that is it. Does anyone have any closing comments?
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good. Well, thank you all very much. We're going to save a few minutes for lingering, so if anyone would like to hang around and chat. Otherwise, thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time. And you guys stay for a group photo.
Yeah, let's do